Sandbox will soon be facing one of two scenarios. One of them is bearish and the second one is bullish. So today I'll explain to you both of these scenarios and how would you be able to spot them. So make sure to watch till the end. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is King, your host, and as always today's video is for educational purposes only. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back, and if it's your first time in the channel and you happen to enjoy my videos, then please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button because it really helps. Now let's go and look at the chart. From the first look at Sandbox chart, it's obvious that the price is still in an uptrend. But what's interesting here is that unlike the majority of cryptos, this one did not break its trend line. So if we take a trend line and draw it right from the start over here, we can clearly see that the price has always been respecting the trend line and it bounced from it every time it came for a retest. Now this is simple, but it's important for two reasons. The first reason, it's an indication of the strength of the momentum of Sandbox. And the second reason, we'll also rely on this trend line later when we do a forecast for the next moves. So keep this one in mind. Now let's move forward and take a look at the kind of structure that Sandbox is forming right now. We will ignore this part right here because this was right at the launch of the Sandbox, and we will consider this structure as it has started from this point over here. So what we have so far is an initial impulse, a correction, a second impulse, and a second correction. When I took a closer look and compared the first impulse to the second impulse, I found that we don't have a divergence between the first and the second impulse. This means that we will likely be having a 5-wave structure because we have already completed 4 of the 5 waves, and we will eventually get one more impulse to the upside. Now this impulse is supposed to go and give us a new all-time high above the last high that we formed at this point. So let's take everything out now and take a look at the upcoming possible scenarios for the 5th and the last wave of this structure. Now the start of the 5th and the last wave of this structure could follow one of two scenarios. The first scenario is based on the assumption that the current correction which we have here is going to copy the exact same pattern that we had in the previous correction here. And let me explain to you how. If we take a look at the previous correction and break it down, we can see that it had 5 waves that were as follow. This was 1, this was 2, this was 3, this was 4, and this was 5. However, in the current correction, we do have 1, 2, 3, and 4 only. So if this second correction here is going to follow and copy the exact same pattern that we had with the first correction, we're supposed to get one more impulse to the downside in order to complete the full structure and copy the exact same pattern that we had in the first correction. And I can tell you that this scenario could pretty much happen because we have a lot of similarities between both patterns. First of all, if we take a trend line on the initial correction here, and we take a trend line on the second correction which we are having right now, we can see that on the 4th wave of the first correction we came close to breaking or to touching the trend line, but eventually we reversed back and went to form the 5th and the last piece. And that's very similar to what we're having right now at this point, because the price is closing towards the trend line, but we're still facing some rejection over here. So there's a good possibility that this would fail and the price might go down as well. The other similarity is the corrective pattern itself that we have in the center. So the center point was this one in between these two lines, and the overall pattern included 1, 2, and 3. So this one here is called a running flat. If we take a look at the current pattern, we can see that we have a similar corrective running flat, and if the same pattern is going to be replicated, we're going to get 1, 2, and 3. Also, if we go back and recall the trend line which we talked about at the very beginning of this video, we can see that this also makes a lot of sense. Because if we're going to get the fifth wave down, this one is likely to go towards the trend line and be rejected from here before continuing up, similar to what we had in the first correction. Because here also we had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 until we touched the trend line, and then we continued up from here. So the bottom line is, if the current structure is going to copy the previous structure, this is the kind of movement that we should be looking at. Now, enough of the bearish scenario, and let's start talking about the bullish scenario. The bullish scenario is based on the assumption that the correction was finished here at this point, and now we are starting to form the fifth and the last wave which we talked about. However, it's not that simple, because we need to see a confirmation in order to adopt this scenario. And this confirmation will happen only if the price goes towards the $5 price point around here. And if you're asking why the $5, I will answer and tell you that this will fulfill my two conditions to confirm the end of the fourth wave of the structure and the beginning of the fifth wave. The first condition, we will get the trend line broken. So this is the trend line of the fourth piece of this structure, and if the price goes towards the $5 price point, this trend line is going to be broken, and that's 50% of the confirmation that this piece has ended and we have started a new piece. The second and the most important factor is that if the price goes towards this level, we would have formed a new higher high on the opposite direction. So piece number 4, we were forming lower highs and lower lows. So if we go in this direction, we'd have started forming low, high, higher low, and then a higher high, and so on, which means that the trend moved from going down to going up. So with these two confirmations combined, we'll be able to 100% confirm the end of wave 4 and the start of wave 5 of the structure. And as I said earlier, wave 5 is supposed to take us above the last all-time high and give us a new all-time high in order for the overall structure, the 5-wave structure, to be complete. So once that happens, the full structure is going to be like this: wave 3, wave 4, and this is wave 5. And this shall end the full structure for Sandbox. So if you are still watching, then you're indeed a special viewer and you deserve a big thank you. Please hit the like button if you benefited from today's video, and until next time, stay safe and see you later.